everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Starseed Chats. I am Lily Nova, and I have special guest Samuel Chong here with me, who is a certified court interpreter and also has a very, very interesting story about a man's abduction, physical abduction, to another planet, and some of the messages that this person received and the book that he's going to be sharing about today. And I also saw that you have been on Coast to Coast with George Noory. So have I. That's awesome. So it's nice to meet somebody else who has been, on Coast to Coast. That's really cool. And if I remember correctly, you're going to be speaking at the Journey to Truth conference.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, awesome. I'll be there. It's right in my backyard.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. So welcome to the show. How are you doing? And can you kind of maybe tell a little bit of background about yourself?
Yes, very, very glad to be here. And my name is Samuel Chong. I'm a Chinese translator in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And I was born in Beijing, China in the year 1978. I've always been fascinated with the paranormal and stories about the ET contacts, because I really wanted us to progress at a much faster pace, because I think we can just take the shortcut of following the guidance and messages and the technologies and suggestions from the ETs that have advanced civilization. We can just do it more directly and to go the direct path so that we can avoid all like making the mistakes. So I had the subconscious mind since I was young to look for books related to ET contactees or messages received by people who say that they have contacts with the ETs. So this is my original intention. And after I came to the US at the age of 15 in 1993, I began to learn English and began to focus on my studies, and while also in my subconscious mind keep looking for such information or books.
Isn't it interesting how you have this innate, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this right now, and hello to everybody who's here live, by the way, and watching the replay. It's super interesting how us star seeds, or we're innately drawn to this since childhood. We just know that there's something else out there. And then whenever you come across the information, you're like, holy crap, like it's real. There's so much out there, but I just think it's really awesome. Would you say that's part of kind of your mission?
I now know that's my mission. Actually, I had two psychics. I went to two psychics, and both of them told me that I would be involved with a book, someone else's book or my own book, but it's going to be my life purpose.
That's awesome. Amazing. Well, I'm glad that you found it and you're doing it. So can you tell us about, so I watched a little bit of your interview on Journey to Truth podcast and was reading a little bit. So you came across this book and then you went to go track down the author, this book about a man's abduction physical abduction to another planet and all of these messages. And then you went to go track him down in Vietnam with just his picture. You just had his picture and you were going to find him?
Yes, a picture of the bungalow where he was living at that time without the exact address. I took the chance. I thought if I couldn't find him, I just enjoy my 5 days in Vietnam. But I found him after saying bye.
That's amazing. So that's no coincidence. That's a major synchronicity right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, the psychics told me that I would be involved with a book of significance. At that time, I didn't believe anything, not even the Bible. I mean, to me, the Bible wasn't a book of significance. I was wondering what kind of book would that be, a book of significance. I was wondering about that all the time. And then finally, I realized that this book is a book of significance because it reveals everything.
Yeah. It looks like I have not read it yet. And there was some people in the audience who said that they have read this book and they love it. It's very fascinating. It looks like a very dense book, so it just has a ton of information about Earth's history, extraterrestrial technology. So can you tell us a little bit, kind of, seems like a pretty dense book, but kind of just tell us a little bit about it and summarize what's in it?
Yes, it is a very dense book with a lot of information that can be verified by people who want to explore more. What happened was that the author, Michel Desmarquet, was lifted in the middle of the air in 1987, sometime in June, in Australia. And he went into a parallel universe with a very beautiful 9-foot tall, 8-foot tall ET, and a very beautiful blonde, sexy woman-looking ET named Tao. Yes, and then and he was taken into their spaceship and started the journey to their planet called Thiaoouba. The word Thiaoouba is pronounced as Thiaoouba or Jehovah, similar to the word Jehovah. So there is a connection between Thiaoouba and Jehovah, as people who read the book will realize, because indeed the watchers, the Thiaoubans, have been watching us throughout history, including in the ancient times. So a lot of the ancient scriptures recorded what happened in the past, like the destruction of the two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, the Moses leading the Hebrews out of Egypt, and the birth of Jesus and Christ, and also some of the NASA mission failures that happened in the 1960s. They were all interventions from the ETs trying to help us, to guide us to the right direction. So he had this 9-day experience living on the planet Thiaoouba and then came back.
Wow. Yeah, that is something that I've wondered about, the splitting of the sea with Moses, and all of that. So he learned about this while he was there. They kind of just gave him.
Yes, they revealed the information, some of the discrepancies of what people believe in the Bible. I have to say that before I read this book, I didn't believe anything in the Bible because there were just so many inconsistencies or puzzles, because I know and I knew that reincarnation existed, but the Bible doesn't really mention about it. So that really made me wonder about what the Bible, whether it was kind of distorted by the Catholic Church or something like that. But this book connected all the dots, confirms past lives and reincarnation, and also specifically mentioned the 4 church councils, including the Council of Nicaea, that the clergy intentionally distorted the original meanings in the Bible. It also reveals other mysteries of the paranormal, such as the Great Pyramid, the Bermuda Triangle, and what ghosts are, and also the human energy field, what some people call the aura, and the effects of colors, and the dangers on Earth. Being the first, number 1 would be money. The second, number 2, is politicians. The third will be journalists and drugs, and the fourth one will be religion. So it really tells a lot of things and covers a lot of the mysteries that we have right now, and also gives us a solution how to solve all the challenges, respond to the challenges. So it's a book of everything.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I really wanted to ask, can you tell us a little bit more about like what the Bermuda Triangle is?
Yes. The Bermuda Triangle is actually a warp, like a portal entrance into a parallel universe. So ships and planes or people near that location get sucked into the parallel universe where time stops and people don't feel any pain or hunger or thirst. So they just remain there forever. So indeed, when the author Michel Desmarquet entered into the parallel universe led by the ETs, he saw a lot of savages and also people wearing medieval kind of clothes. And he was told that it actually explains a lot of the many of the mysteries on Earth. For example, David Paulides wrote a series of very interesting books called Missing 411, documenting the strange cases in which people, when they hike in national parks in the U.S., they suddenly disappear. They just vanish. And then when the corpses are found in far distances that they couldn't have traveled for so long in such a short time by foot. So that kind of explains why those people gone vanished, because they were sucked into like the portal of the parallel universe.
Wow. So I guess probably the extraterrestrials may use those portals also, but we kind of just accidentally get stuck in them.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I've always wondered about that. You also mentioned Easter Island. So I've been seeing a little bit about Easter Island lately. What does the book talk about ancient civilizations, the extraterrestrial visits, and some like the ancient Egyptian pyramids, Easter Island, and all of that, kind of like Earth's ancient history?
Yes, ancient civilizations existed on Earth a long time ago. There were two major ancient civilizations. One is called Lemuria, on the continent of Mu, and the other being Atlantis. And Lemuria was very detailed described, was described in detail in the book, in which the author Michel Desmarquet was led into Lemuria back in time when the continent hadn't sunk into the ocean, and that happened about 14,500 years ago when the catastrophe happened. The entire continent sunk into the ocean. And Michel Desmarquet described that ancient civilization as a very advanced civilization with technologies such as anti-gravity, supersonic vibrational systems to cut huge stones in a very precise manner to build a great pyramid on the continent of Lemuria that is 3 times as large as the size of the Great Pyramid in Egypt. So the Lemuria continent sunk into the ocean. Most part was sunk into the ocean, but the remnants of the continent was today the Hawaiian Islands and also Easter Island. And the huge statues on Easter Island were the statues built by the Lemurians to commemorate the people from Thiaoouba, because during that time, since they were highly evolved spiritually, the Thiaoubans, the ETs, were in frequent contact with the Lemurians to exchange information, to help them out, to colonize other parts of the world. So they built the statues to commemorate the Thiaoubans. And so they pass their knowledge to the people on Atlantis, and a very wise person from Atlantis called Thoth went to Egypt and built a duplicate of the pyramid, but smaller in size. That was about 17,000 years ago. And that pyramid was actually built in 9 years with the technologies from the Lemuria that he learned. And that's where the Great Pyramid of Egypt and Lemuria came about.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love Thoth, by the way. He's the one who actually showed me that I was from Atlantis. So yeah, it was pretty. So he holds a special place in my heart. So we went through the Bermuda Triangle, the pyramids, Easter Island. You mentioned something. So you said that the author of the book, these beings took her back in time to Lemuria, or did they show her? Did they physically take her, or did they kind of show her?
That's a very good question. Michel Desmarquet, the French name Michel, is actually a guy like in his 50s or 60s. He was taken by the Thiaoubans in astral body because the Thiaoubans could access the Akashic record. So they took Michel Desmarquet into the Akashic record. And then Michel Desmarquet experienced everything. He could feel how how everything was at that time, and he had all this kind of holographic experience, and to really see what happened, including when they were having a meeting discussing what to do with the earthquake or the catastrophe, and when everything suddenly happened, he experienced everything in the psychosphere, what they call like the psychosphere as the Akashic record.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I bet that felt very, very real, very visceral, being able to see it that way. There was something else that you had mentioned in that I was watching the Journey to Truth podcast, something about the involvement with extraterrestrials in World War II. Could you touch on that?
Yes, according to the Thiaoubans, they were responsible for preventing Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb, because they believed that if Germany had a bomb earlier than the US, then there would have been 3 times more death in the world. So they caused Germany to lag behind the US government in doing so. I did some research. There was a German scientist called Heisenberg, and he was actually proposing to Hitler to develop the bomb, the atomic bomb. But then he made a very stupid mistake that a scientist shouldn't be made. But he made that mistake, telling Hitler that it was impossible to do that because it would require Germany to acquire the impossible amounts of uranium and other materials. So Hitler finally gave it up. So, in the sense, the ETs during World War II sided with the US government because they believed that the US government was more sincere in helping mankind at that time.
At that time, yeah.
Yeah.
And we've kind of gone off course a little bit, huh?
Yes.
It's okay. We're getting back. That's what we're doing. So for anybody new here, and I wanted to go back to this too. So Thiaoouba, sorry if I'm pronouncing that
That's right.
incorrectly. The
Thiaoouba.
Thiaoouba, the prophecy. Can you tell us, like, what exactly is the Thiaoouba prophecy?
If there are any prophecies, it is definitely not. They're definitely not written in the book, because the name of the book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, is a misnomer. There's no prophecy, but it tells something about prophesying the future. Even the Thiaoubans, coming from Category 9 planet, which is the highest category in the universe, we are on Category 1 planet, the lowest one, like elementary school students living on elementary school, but they cannot predict more than 100 years ahead of us. So they can only predict what's going to happen or what's likely going to happen within 100 years. So that means we decide our future. The future depends on our actions, our collective efforts, and consciousness. So this is actually the gist of the book. They're asking Michel Desmarquet to document his experiences so that we can learn from the book and to mend our ways to go into the right direction so that the future can be changed for the better.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And there's potentials too. There's so many potentials with the future. So it's never going to be like a set in stone thing. Depends on us.
Exactly.
Right. So I was also curious about, so you were talking about the Bible, and so I wanted to ask first the Ethiopians. So you said that this woman, she had long blonde hair, so they looked like the Nordic beings.
Yes.
Okay.
They're very tall, like 9 foot, 8 foot, or 9 foot tall.
Okay. Would these be like the Pleiadians or variation or something similar?
I would say, I don't know, they are hermaphrodites. Like they have male and female sexual organs
Oh,
in the
wow.
same body. So I don't know if Pleiadians are also hermaphrodites, but they are. So they tell us that there are other ETs in our galaxy, not to mention the universe. They actually showed Michel de Marquet the other kinds of ETs, like corpse of other ETs, golden doko. A doko is like half of an egg-shaped structure where the corpse, 147 corpse floated in the middle of the air. Those, according to the Theobans, are very important figures on different planets, just like Jesus Christ. And actually, Michel de Marquet saw the corpse of Jesus Christ, and that really shocked him. He couldn't believe it. He wanted to touch the body of Jesus Christ, but he was prevented from touching him. Um, and there's a very interesting story about that.
Yeah, I did want to ask more about Jesus in the Bible. Michelle asked a really good question. Is category 9 mean the ninth dimension?
Well, they explain that in the universe, there are a total of 9 different categories of planets, depending on the spiritual evolution level of the inhabitants. So, if people on Earth are kind of still learning, like elementary school students, we learn the basics. So, we live on category 1 planet. So, we learn how to survive, how to suffer, how to really respond to the challenges that we face. And then the categories 7, 8, or 9, those are people who are highly evolved, and their main mission is to guide us, to give us spiritual guidance, so we don't destroy ourselves. And I don't know if it's the ninth dimension, but there are actually physical planets people can visit by spaceship. And there is a higher level to the next level, which is the source, the great ether, the creator of the universe. So the 7 masters on the planet Thiaoouba can go in and out of the great ether at will. And they say that it's extremely pleasurable to be with the ether, the creator of the universe.
Yeah. And I was just reading a question from Brad. Does the book mention anything about, do you know if the Germans developed and used anti-gravity technology during World War II? Does it mention anything like that? Because Hitler was he was obsessing over designing UFOs, it looked like. So he's kind of like a weird one.
Yeah, I heard about that. The book really doesn't mention about anti-gravity technology,
Okay.
uh, but I assume that if Germany developed it, they prevent it from happening because they really sided with the U.S. government.
hmm Yeah, and I think they've discovered a lot of this they've just been hiding it, since for the last like 50, 70 years possibly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So with about Jesus and the Theobans, what was the Theobans' kind of role in ancient history around the time of Jesus, and who really was Jesus?
Well, throughout history, the Theobans or Jehovah's have been watching us. They in the ancient times, they took Enoch away, and so Enoch went with God or Jehovah. And afterwards, things happened, and like Noah was told to build an ark. So it's actually their intervention, and so are the destruction of the 2 cities, Sodom and Gomorrah. And so, who is Jesus? Well, the reason I didn't really believe in the Bible was that I would presume someone like Jesus or Christ, that someone who could perform miracles to save people, to heal people, to levitate, and to walk on water, he would have performed all the miracles before the age of 28. I mean, why suddenly he just acquired so this miraculous talent or ability to do so? So that's one question I had in mind. The other question was that why some people just insist that Jesus went to India, and why there is a tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan. I mean, people can still visit there, and there's a documentary, and also in National Geographic, they have a very beautiful piece of article on the tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan. People can still look it up on the internet. And it just seems to me that there are so many inconsistencies in the Bible. But this book says that according to what happened in the history, Jesus, born out of Virgin Mary, was indeed someone very special because he had to fulfill the prophecy that someone special, extraordinary, born this way was going to happen. And Virgin Mary was indeed a virgin because they implanted the embryo into the uterus of Virgin Mary.
I knew it. I knew it.
Yes. So that Jesus was the one who went to the temple and had a lot of conversations with the teachers, and he was highly spiritual and highly very smart, but he couldn't perform miracles because when a person is born this way, when the astral body goes into the embryo, they have to go through a river of oblivion, forgetting everything that happened in the past lives, forgetting all the knowledge accumulated regarding how to perform the miracles. So that Jesus went to India and went through China and finally um, located or lived in Japan until the age of 104. He had three daughters. This is something about the book. It's very, very specific with
Mm-hmm.
many, many details, not like some other kind of information, which is kind of generalized. But this book specifically says that next to the tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan, there is another tomb, which is the tomb of Jesus' brother. And inside that tomb, there's a bundle of hair of Jesus' brother. If people just dig the grave and people can still see that and verify the information. So that's the Jesus who couldn't perform miracles.
Mm.
Christ, on the other hand, is another being, is actually an ET from Thiaoouba who went into the body of Jesus made by the masters of the Thiaoouba planet. So they made a body, a physical body that looked like Jesus, and then had the astral body of one of the ETs, one of the Theobans, enter that physical body, and to be like Jesus. But he was able to perform all the miracles. He preached love and spirituality, and he indeed died on a cross and resurrected 3 days after, just to show people at that time that there's life after death and there's reincarnation. But the concept of reincarnation, again, was removed by the Catholic Church councils.
Yeah, and I want to ask more about that, but thank you, Zach, for the super sticker. Zach asked, does the book talk about Jesus having kids with Mary Magdalene? I also heard Jesus didn't do miracles until after his baptism.
Right. This book doesn't really go into details regarding whether Jesus had kids with Mary Magdalene, but he had three daughters. That Jesus, that one who went to Japan, had three daughters, and the three daughters lived in Japan. And when people go to Shingo Village nowadays, they can still hear that the locals sing a song that sounded like ancient Hebrew language. So it's very different from other nearby villages in Japan. It's very unique. They have a very unique culture that's very similar to the Hebrew culture. So that's something very interesting that I find.
Yeah, that does raise some questions. I'm kind of like taking a peek at the comments. Thank you guys. Hello, everybody here live. We had 111 on. Awesome. This was there. Okay. I also wanted to ask with you had just mentioned there's a lot of things that were taken out of the Bible that this book, mentions and explains. One of them being reincarnation. Can you tell us a little bit more about what these Theobians taught the author about that?
Yes, Michel de Marquet was shown his past 80 lives, and he was a few times a beggar, one time a mining worker in Germany, and his name was actually given as well, so people can still look it up. And one time he was a queen on different planet, ruling like a third of the territory of on that planet. And just most of the time, he was just a commoner, a common person, trying to learn everything. They say that life is actually just like on a wheel rotating. What goes up definitely will have to come down. So we constantly learn lessons and to accumulate spiritual lessons in each of our lifetimes. When we die physically, when we die physically, our astral body leaves the physical body, and after 3 days, it goes into our higher self. I find that the 3 day period of time is very interesting because Jesus Christ resurrected 3 days after he was crucified on the cross. And the Tibetans in China, the Tibetans have this kind of local cultural heritage that a dead corpse is not to be touched for 3 days of time. So I find that coincidence to be very interesting. So according to the Theobans, when a person dies after 3 days, the astral body reunites with the higher self. And then, but that's only like 81% of the electrons of the astral body that does it. The other 19% remains in nature until it is recycled by nature or when the person reincarnates again. So this comes down to some people who say that they can see ghosts, and some people say that there are haunted houses. So what they actually see is the 19% of the electrons from the astral body of the dead person. Because of static forces, ghosts, the electrons, resemble the shape or the appearance of the person when the person was alive. And also because electrons store information, ghosts also have memories. So that's why they frequently haunt the places they loved or hated. There's nothing to be afraid of ghosts. If you don't like ghosts, you can just use a lighter or a fire to make them go away. And I think I have met people who can see ghosts, like Michael Corey. Um, he is a psychic too, and he does a lot of readings. And in my office here, he was communicating with a ghost who used to rent this office.
Oh, wow. I was going to ask who is the ghost.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, a lot of people. I've never seen a ghost. My thing is the aliens. I like the extraterrestrials. I'll talk with them all day, but leave the ghosts, and then I kind of feel bad because I don't want to like leave them out too. But my preference is definitely extraterrestrials and angels. Yeah. So I wanted to also ask you about the aura. What did the Theobians teach him or share with him about the aura and the human energetic field? Some kind of just some insight on that.
Yeah, they're saying that being able to see and interpret auras is going to be extremely important for our future because it's going to raise our spirituality in a very, very unique way. Um, some people can see auras, including very credible people like Barbara Brennan, a former NASA scientist, and also Rosalind Brewery, Brueyer, something like that. And also Caroline Conger. And there are a lot of people who can see auras or colors of the human energy field. And what happens is that the auras represent the personality or the intention of a person. So, for example, I was told that I have a green color aura, like a yellowish greenish aura. And normally, people who have green color auras are healers, people who love nature, and that is who I am. And people who have red color auras, they're very, very kind of passionate and have a lot of strength in the earthly affairs. People who have purple aura are very intuitive and very, very spiritual as well. they, okay, they say that Elon Musk also has a purple aura too. So
Oh, wow, interesting. Yeah, it's super. I don't really see auras. Typically, I do receive a lot of visions though, and my psychic abilities have been growing like crazy since connecting and making contact with the star beings and developing my spirituality. But I have had a couple different people. One person told me that my aura was pink and blue, and then the person before that said it was purple. So pink and blue is purple. And just the other day, like literally today and yesterday, the star beings like sent me the color purple, like violet. And I was like, okay. I didn't know what it meant at first. And then I kind of started like visualizing it. I intuitively, like not even thinking about it, turned my lights to the color purple and just got purple, all around. And then hearing that about the aura, how the color of your aura can actually heal. If you know the color of your aura and you have, that color, like either, oh my gosh, I'm wearing kind of a violet shirt. Yeah, like wearing clothes like that or painting your room like that, it can actually be very, very healing for your aura. That's pretty interesting.
exactly, this is the exact advice from the ETs, from the ninth planet. They're telling us that we should know our main colors of our auras so that we can wear that color outside or when sleeping, and we can paint our rooms to that color. And it's actually more effective than aspirin if someone has a headache, and it's actually going to help to raise your spirituality and also energy levels.
Yeah, just last night, whenever they first sent me the vision and told me Violet, um, I just started visualizing Violet in my room. And immediately, I was laying down for bed. Immediately, I started feeling so calm and I was able to fall asleep very quickly. I just felt very uplifted. So it's like, that was kind of strange. So this is just timely.
Yes, this is actually very important. I'm going to write a book in which I'm going to emphasize the importance and the healing properties of different colors, and also telling people that they can kind of incorporate the colors into what they do in life. And actually, there's a lady in New York that does her website is Aura Aware, and she encourages people to wear the colors matching their aura colors. And I think it's actually a very good trend, and people don't have to rely on aspirin or pharmaceuticals to make them feel better. Colors do it.
Wow, that's amazing. And I just lost my question. Okay, or go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, and so, I think someone asked me about whether I helped the book to be published in China and Taiwan. Yes, that's true. China was actually the most difficult country to get anything spiritual to be published these days, but I somehow got it published as a science fiction. That's the reason that Michel Demarquet invited me to visit him for the second time, so that he could tell me that one thing he was not allowed to write in the book, and he told that to me personally.
Can you share anything more on that, or?
Yeah, he actually the reason for me to visit him was actually just to learn what he didn't write in the book.
Yeah.
Because to me, the book is so incredible, contains so much information that I no longer have to listen to Coast to Coast to find all the answers. Sorry, Coast to Coast, but but that's true. But that's the reason that I wanted to visit him, to find out what's more incredible that he wrote, that he wasn't allowed to write in the book.
Mhm.
And a lot of people asked me about that, and I was told not to reveal it to anyone by Michel Demarquet, but also by Tao. But they didn't say that I couldn't write an article giving as many hints as possible, so that making it out of a puzzle. So that's what I did. So I wrote an article titled "The Second Coming of Christ." So maybe people can get some idea, and if they're interested, they can read the article and to learn the details.
Okay, yeah. Where can everybody find that article? I'm sure there are some people that would like to check it out.
Yeah, it's on my website, chinasona.org/Thiaoouba with the capital letter T, and I can share the article on the private chat. And
Perfect.
do that right now.
That's a pretty catchy title, The Second Coming of Christ.
Right? That's right.
That's a pretty big one.
So maybe you can share it to the people.
Yeah. If it's did you post it? Oh, I posted it in the private chat. Okay, I'll share it right now.
But the most important thing is to read the book, because it's actually I studied economics in college, UC Berkeley, economics history at London School of Economics, and I was very into the financial markets, and also had a degree in financial analysis from University of Carlos III in Spain. So I know a lot of things about investments and financial markets, but reading this book is the best investment I ever made in my life, because it contains a lot of information about alien technologies that's going to help us and our family members tremendously. It also contains information that's so rewarding that it's going to last for generations. I mean, we'll reincarnate. It's going to help us, the process.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. Could you give any hints on some of the healing technologies? So the aura can you give any other kind of examples of what goes into the book? I'm sure there's just tons in there.
Yes. I mean, when a person is having some kind of physical illness, that's because the energy is not consistent or in sync with the entire body. And there are other reasons too, but the main reason is that it's the energy system, the auras. And some people can see that before physical symptoms appear. For example, Barbara Brennan, the former NASA scientist, she saw a friend of hers that like a darkness, like a grayish color in the liver area of her friend. And then 3 or 6 months later, and her friend was diagnosed with liver cancer. So it's kind of like a way to predict what's going to happen to a person's health. And if we can do something about it before physical symptoms manifest, I think it's going to be very, very beneficial to the well-being of each one of us. But I know that a lot of companies or corporations really don't want that to happen, because they won't be able to make a profit out of the pharmaceutical products. But I think people need to wake up to realize that everything on Earth right now is revolved around money, and people need to realize that there are inexpensive, effective ways to make our lives better lives.
Just like with sound healing, you don't need to pay a bunch of money for $30,000 for a prescription whenever you can heal it with frequencies.
Yes, exactly. That's the essence. So the book tells a lot of information about such tricks or tips that people can incorporate in their lifetimes. And I find that those methods that the book mentioned are really inexpensive to incorporate. For example, it talks about the effectiveness of blue light in in killing bacteria and viruses, because before Michel Desmarquet entered into their spaceship, or maybe landed on their planet, they disinfected him using yellow light and blue light. And I checked it out. Harvard Medical School had a paper that summarizes all the clinical experiments that people did on the effectiveness, the antiviral and antibacterial effects of blue lights, certain wavelengths of blue lights. So I think it's very important for us to realize that colors and lights are really some of the most inexpensive ways that we can utilize to improve our physical health and spiritual well-being.
Wow, that's incredible. And so like whenever Harvard like comes across this information or reveals it, shouldn't that be like on the front pages? Like, it's
You
crazy.
you would assume so, but really if I were the major shareholder of a major pharmaceutical company, I wouldn't want that to happen. I would try my best to suppress the information. I would do it. I would do it, and not if I were so interested in the financial gains. Um, and I think that this is what's happening around. And remember, the book says the third most dangerous aspect on earth is actually the journalist or the media. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah. So that's it.
Yeah, I took I was in journalism in school and helped write for the newspaper, and I got to learn how they write their stories. They can get any like information. They have to have like in an angle is what they called it. Here's the information. So you can give two different journalists the same information, the same story, and they can manipulate it, rewording things or picking and choosing what information goes in there. And it could be like two different, completely different stories. So that made me realize, wow, that's what the media is doing. So it's just yeah, you always
Yeah.
got to dig deeper. Always got to dig deeper.
Right now I've been appearing on different shows and trying to spread the message as best as I can. Sometimes I feel like I'm preaching the preached. So I'm trying to wake the people who kind of are still stubborn up.
Mhm.
So getting into the mainstream media is actually one of my secret wishes, so that other people can have a different angle and have a different aspect of what's happening around the world. And I
Yeah.
hope that happens.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, you are a certified court interpreter, so that may be like an interesting, headline. Who's, sharing this because we need all different walks of life to be speaking up about this.
My story was published on a local newspaper, like a small city newspaper. When I tried to ask my friend at LA Times, it just didn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, give them some time.
Yeah.
Give them some time. Yeah, well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Let me see if anybody has any questions in the chat. And I did want to ask you something else about auras. Did the book say anything else kind of about auras? Or you said you were going to write a book. Can you share a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I'm going to. Yeah, that book is actually to show the people who don't know anything about what we have been talking about, their
Mhm.
spirituality, that actually colors do have very reliable, verifiable effects on people. And also, there is human energy field that people can use instruments or devices to measure. And I'm just trying to preach the people who don't know anything about it and trying to wake them up. So that book is actually going to provide a lot of it's going to lay a lot of foundations and to gradually tell people that they should look into this area. And indeed, there are a lot of healers in China, like the Qigong masters, and also healers in the US and also in Latin America, that people can just use their intentions and lay their hands on certain body parts on the patient and to make them fully recover. And I think that's actually energy healing that
Mhm.
like what the Reiki masters do. Um, and I think that really needs to um, be brought into the scientific community.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've been waiting. So I'm in nutrition. I was a nutritionist, and that's what I was practicing before the UFOs came and before my spirituality, before all this started going on. And as a nutritionist and holistic health, people would call it pseudoscience, and it's really annoying. But we're starting to shift. Um, Yeah, let's see if were any questions. I wanted to ask also, you're the author. You said that he couldn't, you had to get that book published as, what is it, like nonfiction, fiction, or what was going on with that?
Yeah, the book was published in mainland China as a science fiction because they had to. I mean, there's no category for a spirituality nonfiction book in China at all. Just there's no category for spirituality, no category for religious studies because they just don't have this. Definitely, there's no category for UFOs or ETs in mainland China. So they had to publish it as a science fiction, and also for the purposes of getting through the censorship over there. But it
Mhm.
is published as a nonfiction in Taiwan, a democratic country. So I had to get the book published in both in China, like in a Chinese-speaking country, in order to get the invitation from Michel Demarquet to visit Vietnam for the second time, so that he could review that
Mhm.
information that's contained in the article.
Yeah, yeah. So you were saying there was a lot that he couldn't put into the book.
Right. There are two other things that he didn't put in the book.
Okay, very interesting. Very interesting. Well, thank you. There were a few questions. Let's see. Stacy, would more meditation raise our awareness to be able to see auras? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it certainly helps. I'm actually trying to find that answer too. How to be able to see auras, how to develop the ability to see auras. I
Mhm.
did some research, preliminary research. A lot of the aura seers are born this way. So they have this kind of natural gift. And some people who later develop this ability tend to be blended in nature, such as frequently walking in the woods or walking in the forests or being extremely relaxed in nature for a long period of time, that they steadily became aware of the colors in their environment, like the colors of plants and animals. So
Mhm.
that's how they did. And I think meditation definitely helps, but I haven't really been able to see anyone
Mhm.
who developed their aura seeing abilities just
Mhm.
through meditation.
As we're talking about it, so I kind of started relaxing my eyesight while looking at you, and now I can see some energy just kind of about this. There's no color to it though, but I think if you just practice and not focusing on anything specific, just kind of relax, you can start to begin to see the energy. It's very subtle, so you'll have to, practice it.
Yes, exactly. I was doing a lot of research on that aspect. That led me to translate a different book. It's called 334 Lies, Lies. And it's a book that talks about how the highest chair of the secret society that was founded in Germany, how he was able to develop the ability to see auras. So he gave a very detailed description, which is to stare or maybe to relax to the most extent to the and then to look into the other person's like this part and uh, and just for a prolonged period of time. And then he says he was able to see the colors of auras just by staring or relaxing his eyes and being fixing his eyes onto that part of that person's face, and he was able to see auras.
That's awesome. So there is hope. Just practice, you guys.
Yes.
And Ramona asked, do our auras change with our mood? I think they can change. Yeah. And Jay Lizard asked an interesting question. Did Jesus do interplanetary travel or just the Earth? Did he understand other life forms? Uh, is the devil from another planet? What do you have to say about that, Samuel?
Okay, so there's a Jesus that was born out of Virgin Mary, who died in Japan at the age of 104 or 5. And there's Christ who came to us, trying to guide us. and he performed all the miracles just so that people at that time could believe him, because we are very suspicious. We seek for proof. We only believe people who can perform miracles. So this is the nature of people on Earth. He According to this book, he did. I mean, they didn't mention that if he had any interplanetary travel. I mean, he came from Thiaoouba, that's for sure. So if you consider that to be planetary travel, then he did.
Yeah.
Um,
And he disappeared for a while and was training. I'm sure he had some pretty interesting experiences where he kind of like went silent for a little bit.
yeah,
Jesus.
yeah, that's right.
Zach asked, do you know much about I Ching?
Yes, I Ching is a very interesting Chinese book that's actually that tells the philosophy of life, the cycles of life. I think it's a very profound book that people can really look into it. And some Chinese people use it to predict what's going to happen in the future. I think it actually came from ancient civilizations. This book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, documents what happened on Earth, not just the ancient civilizations, but also the origins of different races of people. For example, the blacks and the yellow people were originally from a planet called Bakratini. So they came to Earth like we came to Earth. They came to Earth about 1.35 million years ago. So black people and yellow people were brothers, and they should get along with each other, just like rush hour.
Yeah.
Caucasians, on the other
Yeah.
hand, came later, and they landed.
Caucasians did, you said?
Yeah, the
Interesting.
Caucasians came later.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they came onto the continent of Atlantis, and the Jewish people came the latest. They came about 11 or 12,000 years ago from a planet called Hebra.
Wow. That's pretty wild. And that makes, that makes sense. That we all look different. We're human, but we all look different. Like we came from totally different. That wasn't just natural. Like we didn't just evolve that way on the same earth, like from the same complete, like same genetics. Um, and any messages for 2023 that we'll make that the last question.
Well, this book doesn't really say anything about the year 2023, but I learned it.
Or the future, or just, what's to come.
I
If it
think we decide the future. We together
Mhm.
decide the future. The most important thing is to really know the purpose of life is just to learn spiritual lessons and learn that we are all one. Because when God created every one of us, it inserted a tiny portion of Himself to each one of us, so that He could experience what we experience in life. We learn how to respond to life challenges, and through that, we accumulate spiritual lessons. And the spiritual lessons are sent back to our higher self. And so that's the purpose of life, is to experience, because God experienced everything through our physical bodies, because God is a pure spirit. What's going to happen in the future, in this year, in the coming months? From my own background and research and study, I'm a Chinese translator. Sometimes I have access to information from Chinese whistleblowers.
Mm.
And I think we should be frugal, and because a financial crisis is coming up. Because when you look at the history, whenever the Fed, the central bank in the U.S., raises interest rates consecutively in a row in a very short period of time, there's never a soft landing. So there's definitely going to be there's always been a financial crisis, like the
Mhm.
Lehman Brothers crisis or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think people should be prepared for that. And I think when you respond to life challenges, financial relationship wise, you should always ask for your heart, your inner self, to look inside for answers, because the kingdom of God is within you. Don't follow the advice of spirit, like religious leaders or the government. Just meditate or have a good night of sleep. If it's good for your spiritual growth, the right answer will be provided to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with that 100%. The heart is one of the biggest messages that the star beings, that's the key. And also sleep's been good right now. I think it's the good time for us to kind of to look within, like how you said, to help develop our spirituality, our relationship with our higher selves, the universe, and get plenty of rest.
Yes, that's right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Samuel. Do you have any kind of like last comments or messages for the audience or for anybody who's watching the replay?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that what we have been discussing covers only about maybe 9% of the book. There's like 91% of the book that we haven't covered. So I strongly suggest people to get a book and read it to get the other 91% from the book for your own benefit, and also for the benefit of your friends and family and siblings, and it's just so rewarding by reading this book.
Yeah, awesome. And there's a link for that in the description. So go check that out. Samuel, where can people find you? Do you have like an Instagram or YouTube or anything like that if people wanted to reach out to you or find you on social media?
Yeah, I have a Facebook account and also a YouTube channel, and people can search my name on Google, Samuel Chong, and the title of the book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, to find me.
Okay. Awesome. Beautiful. And before we go, I also wanted to shout out Hopewell Farms CBD. I've partnered with Hopewell Farms CBD. Lovely, beautiful starseed couple. I know they were just here in the chat a second ago. So we're doing a 10% off high quality CBD. And there's a link for that in the description with code Lily10 if you're interested in trying CBD. And I think that might be about it. All right. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And it was lovely meeting you, Samuel. I can't wait to meet you at the the Journey to Truth podcast conference.
Great, I'll see you there.
All right. See you. Bye, guys. Have a good night.